positive, uplifting, and helpful. Welcome to the show where you'll get informational and inspirational ideas on how to unleash your potential, get what you want in life, and shine like you're meant to.
Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Angela Loeb. Thanks for tuning in. Today I'm joined by a special guest. I'm excited to have Sally Twellman with me. She's going to be with me during the next half an hour, and we're going to talk about the myths and about health and the wellness journey. We'll get some of Sally's advice for self-care. We'll learn what she wants us most to know about wellness. But first, before we get started, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Sally. Sally and I met some time back in a group of other coaches, and we were supporting each other, so I was really loved her story and her background, and I'm so excited about having her on the program. She's a registered dietitian, a wellness coach, and she uses the latest nutritional and behavior change science to help people all around the world create happy, healthy lives. She believes in the transformative power to change and have positive daily habits, excellent self-care, unconditional self-love. She wants to help her clients develop a new relationship with food and their bodies so they can start living a life free of dieting, which, yay, I'm glad to hear that, and overeating. And so they can be full of happiness, health, and well-being. So it's all about what's going on inside as well as outside. She offers one-on-one wellness and life coaching as well as a self-study group program called Empowered Warrior Academy, which sounds way cool. Sally sees weight loss journey as a spiritual journey, which I really love that, and I'm excited to say that this is going to be the strong focus of our conversation today. So, hello, Sally, and welcome to Be Radiant Radio.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here tonight.
Yeah, I'm glad you can make it. So we just have a half an hour, and it goes by very quickly, so I'm going to just jump in with some questions, and I really want to start off by getting a little bit more about your story, a little bit more about your own journey. So I'm curious about how you got into nutrition and wellness in the first place.
Yes, well, so my journey, as everybody's journey happens, or it started early. So in junior high and high school, I really started feeling very less than. I stutter. I was picked on for my stuttering. And so, of course, like so many people or so many women, we start equating unhappiness with, well, I must lose weight. Or the reason why I'm not happy is that I need to lose about 5 pounds. And so in high school, I really started some very dangerous and destructive eating patterns. I would binge after school to kind of stress relieve, and then I would purge because I felt so guilty for overeating. And that was really a strong pattern through a large part of my late teens and 20s. Well, I go into college, and I'm pre-med like everyone is, and then I find out that that's not really for me. And so I take a nutrition class, and I loved it. And I think part of the reason why I loved it is because it was very much, I was obsessed with food and eating, and not in a totally healthy way, but it was really great for me because I could see how nutrition really fuels us. And so instead of only seeing food as a negative thing where it makes me quote unquote fat, or a positive thing because it feels good to eat and have desserts and all of those things, it became more scientific for me. And I have a very scientific mind, and I love facts and things like that. And so it was really great. But it was a very there was strong duality for me with nutrition for a long time. On the one hand, I knew all about minerals and micronutrients and different things like that and how you actually feed your body, but I was still very much living the life of negative self-talk and really using food and my weight to be mean to myself. And so
were you still
really
were you still overeating and purging at that point when you were studying nutrition, or had you gotten past that already?
So it's so interesting. The motives behind doing that shifted from being a real self-loathing type of behavior into a less self-loathing, but yes, I was still doing some binging and purging actually up until like my mid to late 20s, up until I had my first child, and I was a little bit like, okay, this is getting real. I really need to shift things. And I think being a mother just creates a new level of love that you can choose to extend to yourself. And I think that was the first instance where I think I actually saw, I felt unconditional love, and I started to kind of play with giving that to myself.
So it kind of happened organically for you. It wasn't like you sat down with some counselor who said, you know, you have an eating problem and you need to do these things to change it.
Oh, no. No, definitely not. And I definitely had a lot of guilt around it, because here I was, a nutrition professional who should know better. But I was still both overeating and binge eating and using food very much to control my feelings, and then feeling so guilty about that and purging. It really becomes a punishing type of action at that point. And like, purging really serves a purpose, but it also serves the purpose of being like, okay, good, you've done this. Now you were bad, and so you took your punishment, and you're all good now. Go on about your day. And so it's a very interesting and very destructive way of being. So
the reason I ask is that my sister, too, she went through this kind of understanding, and it kind of was organic for her, too, but her pressure came from being a track star. She was someone who had broken records in track, and here she was in college, and the coach kept saying, need to get your weight down, and so she was, I don't know if she was purging, binging and purging, but she was definitely doing the anorexia behavior. And she realized one day, she's laying on the floor, and she's realizing, this isn't going to work for me. This isn't right. And it was give up the track career, but in doing so, really loving herself and honoring herself. So
that's
it was
wonderful.
She came in from a different angle at it, but she was going through something similar. It sounds like that internal aha, and that part about learning to love yourself, to me, is the most fascinating thing you're talking about here. I mean, this is just so key. It's so powerful. I know you have such a great perspective, and that's why I really wanted you to come on the program, because to me that's a kind of more getting in tune to your body in a different way. And I really want to talk about the myths that we have. Just look at what my sister went through, the myth that she had with her coach, and that was supposedly considered healthy. No, that was totally unhealthy back then, in the 80s. We know better now, but back then that was, acceptable. So that's what I really want you to dive into that today. Yeah.
Well, it's still very acceptable, and in fact, that I think is the biggest myth around wellness and weight loss is that talking about body size and focusing on losing weight as a form of happiness is very acceptable in our society. We as a society have a collective eating disorder. 20 years ago, the level of diets, if people were constantly talking about their macros and being on this diet and being on that diet, it would have been weird. It would have been abnormal. Now, if you are not following some type of restricted diet, you become abnormal. Well, you may just be special, or how do you keep your weight down, or whatever. So, I mean, dieting and food and the clean eating and all of that stuff has become so normalized, but I believe that is actually very abnormal, because external control of our diet, meaning like diet rules, is very destructive, because we stop being able to hear our own cues around hunger, around feelings, around all of those things, and we can only regulate our emotions and what we eat and our exercise based on external rules, if that makes sense.
So in other words, the way we think about it, we think we have to follow rules, but we are told that, emotional eating is bad. But then what you're saying, though, is that if you are really in tuned, your emotional eating is actually can be healthy eating versus, like, not negative emotion eating, but positive emotion eating. I mean, I think that's what you're saying. I mean, that seems to be what's coming through to me, versus thinking and having to follow rules. You're listening and having an emotional response, but in a positive way versus a negative way of, like, beating yourself up and having negative self-talk, feeling bad about yourself, and so stuffing yourself with something that makes you feel better on a temporary basis, but yet then having guilt, which is a negative emotion. So this is kind of like the cycle we're in, I think. I mean, I've seen it.
My gosh.
I've observed it all my life, so...
Yes, it's totally
I think that's
a cycle.
What you're talking about here.
Yeah. Well, and we will start a diet. Say we want to lose weight. Well, and first thing, I think we as a society, especially women or girls, are given the idea that pretty and thin are equated with happiness. So the pretty thin people are happy. And so when life becomes not happy or rocky, because that's the way life is, we start trying to control things. And so we will go on diets. Well, I'm not a size 5. I'm a size 8. I should probably lose 10 pounds. And so we start a diet. And then we start, or we stop listening to when we are hungry, and we only listen to the diet that says we're not supposed to eat after 8 p.m. or that we are supposed to eat 5 small meals, and that brings us further away from what our body is telling us. And I always say that the weight loss journey, the wellness journey, is actually a spiritual journey, because everything good in our life, our purpose, our passion, our relationships, are all connected to our soul and our spirit. And when we do things that are controlled by outside rules, dieting, for example, we become very disconnected from what our body is telling us. And when that happens, and it happens in so many different areas, but so often it will happen in the dieting realm. And we eat so often throughout the day, and if our body is giving us signals, I'm hungry, and you say, well, you're not really hungry, you are just being weak, or you're not doing this, I believe that is telling our soul, that you don't deserve to eat, or that you don't, I'm not really listening to you, you aren't giving me accurate feedback. And every time we tell ourselves that, we start to trust ourselves less. And when we can't trust what our body is telling us, that really translates, into all areas of our life, our relationships, our career decisions. All of those things should be dictated by our soul and our spirit. But because we stop listening to that, because it's not trustworthy, because our body's telling us that we're hungry, but we shouldn't be hungry because we're not following this rule, it creates a very disconnected type of life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can see that translating to, like, relationship. Like, you could say, this person is not treating me with respect, but because they're my spouse, I should just suck it up because a marriage is a long, enduring thing, and this is the person who I'm sharing my life with, and so we have certain rules, right? And so we're, like, following that. And that's probably maybe not the best example, but it's the first thing that popped in my head.
No,
but you're still not trusting that inner self saying to you, you're not getting respected in the way that you deserve, and you stuff it down and don't listen to it. This is powerful what you're talking about right now, and I am positive that people who would hear this would fight back with you and say, maybe your clients do this, but I would hear them saying, but are you saying that I can have a midnight snack and it's okay? Isn't that bad for my metabolism? I mean, seriously, that's what I want to say to you. Is I'm like, but I read everything that said that you should not eat after 10 because then you're not going to be able to digest it well, and there's all the science backing it up. But yet I'm saying that I want this and I'm hungry.
Right.
So what do I do? I mean, how do you care for yourself when you have all this coming at you?
It's such a great question, and I actually have this conversation all the time. So one of the things I work with my clients on is to really start re-listening to our body cues so that we can start listening to our intuition later. But first it starts very small about how hungry are you? And then and a lot of my clients have a lot of emotional eating and binge eating tendencies. And so what I will have them do is to say something like, if it's 5 p.m. and they know that that is a typical time that they will emotionally eat because it's at the end of the day and things like that, I have them pause and say, what am I wanting right now? Do I want to eat? Well, am I hungry or do I want to eat? And after you pause, like then ask yourself, what feels like love right now? Would the ice cream feel like love, or would what feels like love doing journaling? And so many of my my clients say, well, a glass of wine feels like love. Ice cream feels like love. And so I hear that all the time. If your body wants it, how do you deny yourself that and still be in loving communion with your spirit. And that sounded kind of dramatic, but I mean, I truly believe that so many things that we do throughout the day are a way of positively relating to yourself. And just because you want it, you can totally have it. I just want you to be mindful about why you are choosing it. And when you switch away from the idea that, so we live in a very impulsive society. And so we will choose things just because they taste good. And that is totally fine. That is actually normal eating sometimes. But if it becomes constant problematic action, that is actually to numb feelings or to escape from certain things, that is where I feel like it pulls us away from alignment with our spirit. For example, the very typical evening overeating thing at 5 p.m., if you take a pause and you ask yourself, now, why am I eating this? Why do I feel that need to kind of snack? If the answer after a few times of asking yourself this is, I am just kind of stressed at the end of the day, like I have big emotions, that is fine. Work through that. If the answer becomes, I feel stressed out that I totally hate my job, or I know my husband is going to come home at 6 p.m. and going to gripe at me for not having a clean kitchen. That is really good information. And so if we constantly numb that really good data that our soul is giving us, then we can never do anything to stop feeling that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that answer your
Like
question, actually?
It's almost like you're shifting the attention to the eating. No, I totally get what you're saying. It clicked when I was thinking about alcoholism, because my father's sober now, but for a long time in his life he was an alcoholic. And I one time asked him, I said, why? Why is this the situation for you? Why do you do this? He's like, because I don't want to think about who I am, and it helps me to numb out, and I'm a different person when I am. And so I think I get what you're trying to say, because it was like all the questions for asking if you're addicted to alcohol or substance is, what is the reason? Why are you doing it? What's the emotional payoff that you're getting? I totally get what you're trying to say. It's using food for the same reason, and that makes sense. And we may not think, we don't have a real big problem. Maybe it's a little problem. But still, I totally get what you're saying from the spiritual side of it, that if you don't honor that, then you never hear what is really being, what's the message coming through from your soul, from your spirit, even from your body, just the wisdom of your body, probably. Yeah, that's really profound. Yeah. Well, we're running out of time, but I want to ask you, what if you wanted to get people to walk away with gem of wisdom, the big thing you'd want them to walk away knowing, what is that? I mean, other than this very profound thing you've just said, which is listening to yourself, asking that very key question: am I hungry, or do I want to eat? What would feel like love right now? That's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So I guess the wisdom I would like to bestow, and one of the biggest things that what was so profound for me, it would just be becoming aware. And what you were saying about your father, and being so much about our life can change if we just become aware of why we do things. And so if something is not going right in your life, I would say just take a pause and ask yourself, why am I doing this? And what is happening here? And one thing that is so key, is to really work on loving yourself more. And I know that is something that people say all the time, self-love, 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 and it's kind of become a little cliche, but I believe that is where the shift happens. When we move away from diet and exercise as a way to make ourselves smaller, to fit into a mold, and really use those actions, those daily actions that can be very empowering, to really start using those to love ourselves better. And that simply comes from the way you talk to yourself about it, and allowing it to be an opportunity to care for yourself. I have been exercising since early college, and it really wasn't until my late 20s that I remember being in a cycling class and feeling strong. And instead of doing it to like burn calories, look, I burned 300 calories. I didn't care anything about calories. It was like I felt strong. And when I started feeling strong and really seeing my own power, was I able to dip into that well that we all have, that is like super bombastically magical.
Yeah, that's good. I like the way you put that.
That is like,
yeah,
it's so
awesome.
It's just so amazing. Yeah.
So it comes down to that. I mean, yes, it sounds cliche, but it comes down to that single sentence: love yourself. And really, I guess too, that way you do that is by really honoring what's going on, why, what's motivating you, and the why. So really good.
And
I want everybody to work with
messages.
you, Sally, and everybody to work with you and take your programs, because that's so profound. And I'm assuming you just really want people to go to your website. I guess they'll see everything there.
Yeah,
is that right?
Please do. Yeah, and I have lots of great blog posts, recipes, different things like that. I love to post different things there, and I love this. Like this thing has totally transformed my life, and so I really want other people to experience it too. So just stop by and ask me questions, and please just say hi even. I'd love to chat.
Cool. Good. Before we go, I want to thank the wonderful and most awesome Sally Twellman. Thanks so much, Sally. What great and inspiring conversation. I loved it. So thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah.
Yeah, and thanks everyone for listening. And if you want to connect with me, you can go to angelaloeb.com. That's ANGELALOEB.com. All right, everybody. Until next time, keep on shining like you're meant to. Thanks for tuning in.